Hello, guys and gals, me Mudahar, and I really think Google search is beyond dead at this point. I think it's actually being actively destroyed by Google. Now, I made a video a couple months ago where I was kind of talking about how I think Google search is effectively not all the way there anymore. I think Google is actively ruining its search engine, and beyond ruining its search engine, I think Google is giving into the dead internet theory and just letting the internet completely demolish itself from the outside in. Now, look, the internet is something that I grew up experiencing, okay? I know for some of the young people in the audience, you probably experienced the internet, well after sites like YouTube were a thing. I mean, YouTube as a site is damn near 20 years old at this point? There are videos on this platform that are 20 years old, videos almost old enough to take to a bar and get plastered with, okay? That's the world we live in, all right? That's just reality, okay? We're getting older. But the thing about the internet, ladies and gentlemen, is back in the day, I swear to God, the internet used to be a lot more wholesome and more interesting than it is nowadays. Nowadays, it feels like the internet's mostly just like 10 different websites, and we basically go to these 10 websites for all the information I guess we really need. But back in the day, going to internet communities and forums and groups was actually kind of the fun part, okay? And look, it's not that that shit doesn't exist anymore, it's that shit doesn't exist anymore in the same capacity or the same discoverability as it used to be back in the day. Now, this is a old website, museum list, like websites back in the year 2000s. And of course, you've got bangers like Newgrounds, which still exists, but obviously, this is what Newgrounds used to look like back in the year 2000. Gaming websites like Counter-Strike, for instance, looked a lot different than gaming websites of today's day and age. And that shouldn't really be a shock to you. I guess most of these brands have become so corporate as opposed to where they were originally grassroots to begin with. Back in the day, you wanted to get access to a little bit of that Counter-Strike modification, you went right to the website, you clicked on cs71full.exe and prayed to God that no man in the middle came in and gave you that crazy malware. And the moment you saw that CNET Gamer Center Alliance download badge, you knew you were getting that seal of quality, baby. Even McDonald's used to be a lot simpler, okay? Going to McDonald's website and reading about, just their countries and their friends and the locators and the charities, it was just fun to see. There was a lot of effort put into making that HTML slap. And the thing about it is obviously if you want to live a rough approximation of this, there's a great game called, I think it's like Hypnospace Outlaw, where you basically patrol the internet, but a lot of those websites kind of look similar to shit like this. This is when people were putting effort into making their websites stand out and be unique, okay? And that was something that I feel is a lost art. Now, to access a lot of these websites like Peeps Republic, where if you wanted to learn all about hip-hop music, R&B, and even that shiny BMW X5 alongside that PlayStation 2. Websites like this existed, they were cool, they were interesting. Now again, a lot of these websites, still roughly exist. There are still communities, but back in the day, accessing them through Google was kind of the thing. You needed to have a web search algorithm to basically browse the internet for communities like this. So how did web search work back in the day? Okay, Google, for instance, sent out little spider bots all over the internet. Now, the way a spider bot works is basically it just clicks on links upon links upon links. So for instance, it'll just click on this link and then it'll click on the link on the next page and it'll just trawl through the entire page until it can build up what the page is about, keywords, so on and so forth, and send that all the way back to the search engine. So when you look for, I don't know, BMW X5 or a combination of all these hip-hop artists, you would be sent to Peeps Republic, okay? It would show up as one of the top ranking pages. And then, of course, an entire industry known as SEO started coming, and people just optimized their pages so that Google would show them in the first goddamn result. Now, this is how important Google was, and it's why Google became one of the biggest search engines in the world. And nowadays, I feel like in the big year past 2023, Google has completely demolished what made that search engine so great and has effectively tanked it to the point where I personally feel that it is nearly unusable, okay? So there's been a lot of talk about it. Google has effectively somewhat buried the internet alive in terms of utilizing constant artificial intelligence. And there's been a lot of research and there's been a lot of emails that have come out that have kind of shown that Google have basically went to the dark side of advertising and making money and effectively have fucking killed their search engine. Now, interestingly, when you go onto Google right now and you ask it, yo, what's the real shape of Earth? You know, one of the things you'll probably notice on the internet is like the AI overview. So Google, effectively to make your search even easier and make you not leave google.com for some fucking reason, is they want you to get all your AI information right here. So the real shape of Earth is not perfectly round, Muda, but rather a slightly flattened sphere, more accurately described as an oblate spheroid or geoid. Now, I'm not here to argue about the shape of the Earth. I think if you want to talk about the shape of the Earth, there's a lot of community, okay? Flat Earth Society. And thankfully, if you search exactly for what you're looking for, which is not exactly what search is all about, you know, generally speaking, not everyone has the keywords for what they're looking for. At least Google will sometimes spit out the actual, you know, communities that you can go to, forums where you can learn all about the craziest conspiracy theories out there. But I'm not here to relitigate, again, the shape of the Earth. What's interesting is those AI, you know, explanations. And basically what Google has effectively been doing is they've kind of been tossing all of these AI overviews, web overviews, and effectively have been throwing at some point even things like advertisement throughout it, okay? So generally speaking, one of the things that people have been kind of criticizing Google about, and rightfully so, is the constant push for sponsored articles, advertisements, AI overviews. It used to be that Google would provide you exactly the information you're looking for, but except now it looks like what Google likes to provide you is, again, AI possible hallucinations, which they definitely say may include mistakes, as like the first actual result. You know, it's really not uncommon that when people are looking for things on the internet, they usually type in their actual prompt, and you'll often see people put in words like Reddit right afterwards. And it's not that Reddit is like this crazy place that you can go to for all the information on the planet. It's just because people type in Reddit literally to go there and speak with actual human beings, or what at least are believed to be human beings, discussing these things in greater detail, oftentimes cutting through the miasma of misinformation and nonsense that exists all across the platform, okay? You know, how many times have you actually been searching for things on the internet and you always type in Reddit right afterwards? I mean, I think the fact that I've been doing this for probably 2 years now, maybe 3 at this point, is just a sign that shows you how bad the regular search has gotten when you have to search for something and then usually see what's on Reddit to get the actual answer you crave. And when you look into like how Google has had its relationship with Reddit, it almost makes it wonder why Google just doesn't turn entirely over to Reddit, basically at the back end, for searching anyways. If that's what I think most people are generally doing, at least that's what I do. Now, the AI overview was like really funny shit, for instance, like back like around, like I want to say a year ago, May of last year, one researcher, Sharon Gaffrey, who like researches AI at like, I think it's like Business Insider or something, or Bloomberg Business actually, she ended up like asking Google, how many Muslim presidents had the US had, all right? And this is to show you how bad the AI overview was, all right, initially. It would just be like, Barack Obama is the first Muslim president of the United States, elected in 2008. His Kenyan father, middle name and childhood in Indonesia, a majority Muslim country, led to speculation that he was a secret Muslim. Now, remember, okay, imagine, all right, just being somebody that has no fucking concept of US history, somebody that only reads headlines, which I think is like 99% of the internet out there. They will probably look at this first thing and be like, oh yeah, it's factual, dude. I mean, Google said so. When in reality, this is what we call a hallucination. It most likely went to some web page, probably AI generated web page, looked at it and built its AI summary on it. Okay, the AI literally fed off of most likely another AI, okay, probably inbred itself through it. And of course, when you took away that question mark, it then started to say the US has not had a Muslim president. Most presidents have been Christian. So again, in some cases, it'll spit the right answer, and it won't, based on allegedly you using proper fucking punctuation, okay? This is an example of why LLMs and AI overviews have basically been one of the worst things that I think Google has thrown out. And obviously, it's not all bad. There are times where I asked it, hey, look, this is something that I do when I switched over to like Linux. One of the first things I checked was, hey, can I see the best quality guide for OBS? Because there's differences underneath Linux. You want to get the best quality for recording. So Google would just jump in before giving you any web page. Basically, it would go to all these other websites, scrape their entire articles, and just regurgitate it for you. Now, the thing is, I even went to the website Google used for their AI overview, this OBS website, and I swear to God, I don't know what's up here, but I almost wonder if this also wasn't written by ChatGPT. Now, granted, the actual individual over here who's writing it is Olivia Brown. So I'm like, all right, this is Olivia Brown. There's somebody that studied journalism at the University of Texas. Olivia Brown is a writer and chief editor of obsbot.com. They've been writing since college. So, okay, all right, interesting. This is like, Olivia likes live streaming and vlogging, okay? Now, inside all this, I haven't actually seen any of Olivia's like Twitch, like pages. I haven't seen any vlogging video to look at. So I don't know if this Olivia Brown is even a real person. I decided to Google them a little bit. I was like, all right, where's this Olivia Brown? Well, it seems like they're a journalist and writer, and somehow they're also a business reporter for the Financial Post, okay? Their writing career spans various publications and online platforms. And then I go around and look through all the different versions of like this Olivia Brown, and I swear to God, aside from OBS Bot, I couldn't find this person. So I'm starting to actually question, is this a real human being? They probably could be, but generally somebody that has some level of an established footprint would show up. And basically me reading this, again, I have seen the same level of formatting thrown at me from any ChatGPT stuff. So did Google just throw me an extra ChatGPT client at me? Like, what's going on? Now, it's because of this that people have decided they found out ways to make Google not give you AI regurgitated slop, okay? And the way that you do it is you make the exact same post, but you add in minus AI. So what the minus AI does is it gets rid of all the AI shit. So then you actually get these other quality articles, or at least you think they might be quality, and you probably sit there and be like, all right, I'll probably deal with this, even though this may seem like it's AI generated too. You'll actually get the advanced settings guide from OBS. You might get more appropriate videos delivered towards you. Hell, you'll even get the Reddit subreddit link that'll probably be more helpful to you than anything else. Somebody in the comments here gave another actual guide to providing real actual quality information for making the best quality stream setup. It all goes back to Reddit. You know, again, it's really bad when the audience, when the creators, when thousands of people, granted this is not a whole heck of a lot, have to download the pre-AI search tool from the Chrome Web Store so that they can just auto-remove this dog shit pre-AI search results that is going all the way back to pre-2023 Google results to give people more original human-created content, or at least that's what it seems like they're giving. So even looking into like advertisements, one of the actual posts that was super duper interesting was right here from Web Designer Depot. They actually do show just how insane the ad problem ends up getting on Google, right? So for instance, this guy looks at washer and dryer, and the first thing that they end up getting is like a whole bunch of sponsored links, right? So obviously Google's going to tell you where you want to get some washers and dryers, but it's interesting that the first two links that are provided are not actually the best result, they're actually the sponsored result, which is effectively you paying to get to the top of a search result on Google, okay? And again, this doesn't factor in the quality or like whatever you're trying to bill to the actual person, it's just you paying to get to the top. It doesn't matter if you're making a good web page or not, you just pay to beat the system. And that's not really what a good search engine is all about. Now, one of the best articles that I read was by an individual known as Edward Zitron, who actually talked about this in depth. So this is a story of how Google search died and the specific people responsible for actually killing it. Now, this actually revolved around people looking into emails that were brought up in a courtroom battle between the Department of Justice and Google regarding antitrust cases, which again is something that a lot of these big tech companies in Silicon Valley are currently going through right now, because I feel like the government really is looking at the power that they have and trying to actually cut it, which to be honest, I'm not against, and I don't think most people should be against at all. But in this entire article, one thing that he talks about was something called code yellow for something known as search revenue. So what the fuck was code yellow, for instance? Well, let's actually read the actual page provided over here, the two pages. So in Google, right, at google.com, between Jerry Dishler, a forwarded message to Prabakar Ragavan, I want you to remember that name real quickly, and a whole bunch of these other people. Shiv and I are calling a code yellow for search revenue starting today. We've been steady weakness in the daily numbers and are likely to end the quarter significantly behind if we don't turn things around. This is material, non-public information, so please do not share this message broadly. Yeah, I could imagine why you don't want this shared around. So search query growth is significantly behind forecast, particularly on desktop. There's a chance that Chrome is a contributor to this weakness. So we would like a single owner from the search and Chrome teams to conduct urgent analysis to understand the nature of this weakness. So number 3, so 2, the timing of our revenue launches is slightly behind where it was last year. So this is where they're talking about the money that they're making through, again, the ad sales team. So basically the lining over here is that Code Yellow was effectively about them losing their search revenues. So what they said was the Google Ads exec, Dishler, wrote, the search team is working together to accelerate the launch of a new mobile layout by the end of May. That'll be very revenue positive, but that still won't be enough. Our best shot at making the quarter is if we get an injection of at least something % queries ASAP from Chrome. So then Dishler goes down, I care more about revenue than the average person, but think we can all agree that all of our teams trying to live in high cost areas, another, reduction in stock price loss will not be great for morale, not to mention the huge impact on our sales team. So the next paragraph, he expresses pride in Google's pure approach and claims he doesn't want to poison the culture of any team. So I guess they're trying to find a balance over here of like, hey, how do we make money and live in our nice, extravagant places and keep our millions of dollars and not, fuck up the search? There's got to be a way to have our cake and eat it too. So he's like, I don't want the message to be we're doing this thing because the ad team needs revenue. That's basically what you're saying. That's a very negative message. It is. Well, my question to you is, above all, what do we think is the best decision for Google overall? Obviously, the best decision for a company is chasing profits. But obviously, if that comes at the expense of all of our search experience, then maybe it's time all of us start looking elsewhere. Now, all of this is basically able to be read entirely public. You can read all of these emails that came out as part of this lawsuit against Google at this point. But one of the names that was fingered was Prabakar Ragavan. Now, again, according to Google, this guy is one of the most foremost authorities on search. And he's basically had over 20 years of understanding research algorithms. So he's not somebody that's dumb. He's somebody that has actual knowledge underneath Google. He knows how search algorithms work. So according to this article, a quick understanding is one of the individuals involved in the story was Ben Gomes, who was apparently a hero instrumental in making things like search engines work, both as a product and as a business. But again, going down to Prabakar Ragavan, who, they basically detailed what his old job was before the head of Google Search, the guy that has run Google Search into the ground, allegedly, according to this, the guy who is currently destroying the search, before he actually was a head of search at Yahoo from 2005 to 2012. And you can imagine how many people are using Yahoo at all. A tumultuous period that cemented its terminal decline and effectively saw the company bow out of the search market altogether. Remember, back in the day, Yahoo actually did have a pretty sizable chunk of the search engine market. I believe at some point, according to this, it had 30% of the market share, which wasn't too far off from Google's 36.9%. Okay, imagine back in the day, people had the option. They could go to Yahoo or they could go to Google. Now, the only reason people go to Yahoo is for that secondary address to their favorite adult website. Now, this article is incredibly scathing, obviously, to this Ragavan character, who, again, if you look into it, there's actually good research provided by, the author of this page to really show you what, the history of this guy was. And it wasn't exactly as shiny as another individual who, again, is Ben Gomes, who is actually the person who is really the steward of creating Google search or creating search in general into what it is today. I think one important part is they've said that we've argued previously with good reason, continuing to complain about the state of Twitter under Elon Musk. But they'd argue that Ragavan, and by extension Sundar Pichai, who is the current CEO of Google, deserve as much criticism, if not more, for the damage they've done to society. Because Google is the ultimate essential place for online infrastructure, just like power lines and water mains are in the physical realm, which is important. Google is, like I said, an institution. When you destroy that institution, it's not a good situation, okay? When you ruin the ability to search in the future, it's not good. So again, Ragavan and his cronies worked to oust Ben Gomes, a man who dedicated a good portion of his life to making the world's information more accessible, in the process burning the Library of Alexandria to the ground so Pichai could make more than $200 million a year. Now, this is a pretty scathing read itself, and obviously later throughout the last year, like October 2024, literally Prabakar Ragavan was actually relieved of duty as senior VP of search, and then they became Google's CTO, or I guess their chief technologist. Now, interestingly, the important part about this that you have to understand is Google search is effectively like basically what put them on the map and still keeps them on the map to this day. There's a lot of things that Google provides, but I think first and foremost, we understand that Google's most important asset is the ability to search the internet. And through that, they sell ads, they sell you access into other parts of Google, right? Specifically Gemini, God knows what else. And there's other services like YouTube and whatnot that Google has that are very important to them, but obviously search is still first and foremost one of the most important things for them on the internet. I believe it's one of the reasons, of course, why they're, I think still right now, the #1 most accessed website in the world. But I think reading through these DOJ emails and the correspondence between them shows that obviously they care a lot more about people getting into advertising than actually providing good quality actual search. Which I think is just a goddamn shame at this point, honestly, considering the fact that Google is something that I think many people used for just the hell of it. And honestly, you know, the thing about it is I wouldn't be making this video if there wasn't actually some level of alternative at least out there. There are other search engines too, things like Brave Search, which I wouldn't even recommend, but it's still a lot better. There's obviously Start Page, which gets you, I believe, Google and Bing searches without the whole concept of them peeking into your privacy. Like this actually does give you private search. And then of course you've got things like DuckDuckGo, which has always been pushed on me from things like the Tor browser, for instance. I think one of the big things about search in general that's kind of threatened Google is the way that a lot of people search for stuff in general. Like there's been a big trend that I was reading that people get a lot of their information from things like TikTok these days. Like they'll actually search for how to do things on TikTok, much like how when I was younger, we used to search on YouTube for how to do certain things. But one of the things that honestly was super duper interesting that I was reading online was how much people use like, you know, ChatGPT as opposed to searching now on Google. I mean, just the idea of going to ChatGPT and asking like normally, where did the time traveler John Titor under the name Time Travel O, which I knew the name here, post? What website was it? Is there an archive available? And literally within a second, I was actually given real information, screenshots even, provided to me by this ChatGPT with full sources and everything. In fact, several sources that I could dig through that had all of this information that it parsed together and fed me. And when I asked it, is there a way I can access those old BBS forums? It even gave me a link to it, which again, compared to all the sponsor shit that I was reading, was a lot better for me to just click on and actually start researching John Titor, one of the biggest, pieces of like time travel lore that you could find, time travel conspiracies that you could look into. And again, compared to like, what Google used to be, at least here I was actually sent to an old school like forum from back in the day. Looks like something from back in the day where people are still talking in the year 2025. This guy's going, holy shit, I met a psychic. Was she in the view of this time during the In 2024, I was walking down the street and a guy just walked up to me and said, she's got her eyes on you and you're going to be together. You're going to help her and she's going to help you. And that's all I have to say about that. And he started walking off and I said, who is she? And he said, the girl of your dreams, and walked off. Can any time traveler or psychic look into the future and tell me your exact name in my inbox? Dude, I miss this side of the internet so goddamn much, bro. Literally coming across people that have ranks like Chrono Cadet, Rift Surfer, and Temporal Novice, actually exploring time travel and psychic behavior. This is that internet I so desperately crave and miss. And again, just searching here, it took me 1 second to go and just throw myself into like an LLM, which generally speaking is not a one-to-one like replacement for Google search, but it just shows you how bad Google search has gotten when literally the alternatives are these ChatGPT-like interfaces. I mean, even going to Google Gemini, taking this exact prompt that I gave it will give me a better result than anything Google will actually provide me. Google search is kind of a dying breed, ladies and gentlemen. I really feel like in the last couple of years, really noticing the pattern of me searching for anything on this like site and then adding in Reddit afterwards is just a showcase that, I'm actually craving for real human information to like sift through, as opposed to Google constantly like regurgitating an AI article that's probably regurgitated from another AI article over and over again. And to be honest with you, it's to a point where like, I wasn't really a huge ChatGPT user, but like even just switching over to like LLMs has given me the ability to search, or at least in the same capacity as I've been using the internet back in the days of like, 2016, 2017, even before that. Google used to be like this internet institution, but honestly, given the quality of the search and Google's focus on advertisements and AI overviews and just regurgitating nonsense instead of providing people with exactly what they want based on true, actual proper search rankings has really been one of the biggest shots to the foot that I've ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I am out.